Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Coping with our new normal. I know it's been tough. My kids have cabin fever, so we've been trying to go for walks and bike rides. Anyway, I'm sure that's the least of some people's problems. So, whatever is going on, I hope you're able to handle it right now. I am going to send an email a little bit later. I'm just behind on a lot of stuff, but I'm going to compile all the resources that Evergreen has also sent out and forward that to you and whatever information I have. I know you're probably overwhelmed with a lot of information, so I'll try to keep it just as one short or at least one consolidated email. This video, though, is in response to the homework you did about Gattaca. I wanted to wait until a significant number of you had already completed that homework. And I just wanted to respond to some of the discussion questions. Obviously, I would have preferred us to have a discussion about all of these, but since that's not possible, I will respond to some of them. And then, of course, you answered a couple of questions. So I'll also sort of summarize what you said. So the first couple of questions is that it's very possible we already have a lot of the technology that approaches some of what's being represented in the movie Gattaca. We've sequenced the entire genome, meaning all of our genetic code. We don't know so we have the code, but we don't know uh, what all of the genes are yet within that code and what they represent or what they do. Uh, but we are able to find a lot of different genes. So my sister-in-law's mother was able to test for breast cancer, the gene that means you're more likely to get breast cancer, and was able to do some things because of that. And there's other things. So we've identified genes for several things. So it is very possible. Whether we would have a society like Gattaca, that's more of sort of a social question, right? Like the technology exists, but are we willing to allow ourselves to have a society where we base things on this? These questions are already coming up. Some people are hesitant, some people, including me, are hesitant to do those genetic test things like those 23andMe, because I'm not sure in whose hands my genetic code will go and what they can do with it. There's already an example of a company that hired or was not willing to hire people who smoke. And the reason that they gave was because people who smoke were more likely to have health problems, and they didn't want to have to pay basically the health bills for somebody's health problems. They made this a policy that their employees who smoked would have to quit or they would be fired, and they wouldn't hire smokers. So similarly, you can imagine if a company got their hands on somebody's genetic data and saw that, well, this person's more likely to be diabetic or have cancer or something, they might say, we don't want to pay the bills for that and not hire that person. So, people have those kinds of concerns, and we have the technology for a lot of that, but we don't have the policies in place. Or sort of, we haven't thought about the different moral and ethical issues surrounding the technology yet. So, as is usual, our technology is sort of outpacing our civic conversation about some of these different things. Okay, so let's move on to these other questions. So, the moment that changed everything for Vincent, a lot of you put the same thing, and put what I was thinking of was that game of chicken. So, where Vincent and his brother would go out into the ocean and swim, and whoever turned back first would lose. And there was one time, so of course his brother would always win. Forgetting his brother's name, Antonio. But his older brother would always win. He was, stronger and had more endurance and genetically superior. So he would win every time. But this one time, Vincent won, and it changed everything for him. Let's see if I can actually get to that clip real quick. Let's see. Oops, that was my kid. Okay, so actually my kid is also, yeah, let's not do the clip. My kid is doing a Zoom play date, so if I turn on the volume here, you're gonna hear my kid. Anyway, so we will not do the clip for now, but there is a clip, you can find it somewhere in part one. And he says that he found out he is not to the something to the extent of he realized he was not as weak as everyone thought he was. So basically, that moment showed him, in essence, that what he had grown up to think, what everyone in that society had been raised to think, that your genes determined everything about you. He realized that, well, if his genes were saying that he was supposed to lose that game and he wound up winning, well, what else have people been telling me my genes say I can't do and I can, right? He's basically saying, if I could break the expectation in this one thing, what else can I break expectations about, right? So that's what changed everything for him, and decided, people have been telling me I can't do this or I can't do that because of my genes. Well, I wasn't supposed to win the game of chicken either, and I did that. So what else, could I maybe do? So he decides to leave home, and sort of escape all those, all those restrictions he has, to try to go for his dream of, being an astronaut, essentially. So he does that. The doctor lets Vincent go at the end, if you remember in the movie, because the doctor himself has a son who, um, he says at some point in the movie, isn't all he's cracked up to be, right? So basically, he, or is not what he was supposed to be genetically, or genetically he's supposed to be inferior. He doesn't specify really. But basically, Vincent gives the doctor hope that, well, if he can achieve all these things while being, someone genetically inferior, then maybe the doctor's son can also accomplish something. And so he lets him go at the end. um, why does Jerome kill himself? There's actually it would have been nice to have an in-class discussion, because we don't really know, from past semesters. And when we've talked about this, there's a few different things. One is, you know uh, he sort of feels like maybe he's accomplished everything he's supposed to have accomplished by providing his genetic code to Vincent and let him fulfill his dream. There's like some sort of nothing left Jerome can give. In some sense, Jerome is like the opposite of Vincent. Vincent was supposed to be like nothing and wound up being amazing. Jerome was supposed to be amazing according to his genes, and he got second place. I mean, it's not even like he was a failure, right? He got second place. But he was supposed to never be second place. He was always supposed to be the best. And so it was like the opposite of Vincent, where Vincent was told he would be nothing and he finally accomplished something. Jerome was always said, you would never not be first. And then when he came in second, he thought, well, what if everything else is also a lie? What if I really am a failure? And it sort of spiraled out of control. So he tried to commit suicide before. That's how he got in the accident, lost the use of his legs. And then at the end, I guess realized maybe his job was done by helping Vincent achieve his dream. Maybe it was very practical. He didn't want to leave behind evidence. But, these are some of the things that's going on with Jerome. Um, so as for, choosing our genes, I think I will put that in a second video. It's a separate topic and sort of related to the other assignment as well. So I'll stop this video here and we'll start a new one.